having a conversation about the World Book Day. But as usual, you know, the Twitter handles for the show at CTV Harriet. Harriet is the show's anchor. She'll be back on the block from Monday next week. And, of course, so you can tweet at CTV Harriet or tweet at BBosin. I mind your business on a daily basis. You can also tweet at Channels TV, all lower caps, or at B's Morning for the show specific. So it's the World Book Day today, set aside to celebrate authors, their works, what they call books, and encourage reading around the world. One woman who's done some writing, very interesting one, called a Smart Money Africa, and the other, the Smart Money Women, is Arese Ugu, and she's an author and founder of Smart Money Africa. She's joining us from our Lagos studios today. So I got an all-female business club, all in Lagos today. Arese, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
So, yeah, so it's often said, if you meet doctors, they'll say, you are what you eat, right?
Right.
So you also heard, you are what you read.
You definitely are. I think it's true. I think that what we read affects, you know, how we think. It affects our culture. It affects the way we do things. So yes, I completely agree with you.
So I'm going to ask you the question. What do you read at this time of economic meltdown? What have you been reading?
What have I been reading? Well, recently I read Worth It. It's by Amanda Steinberg. She's the founder of Daily Worth and Daily Worth FM. It's a personal finance platform for women. I think it's really interesting because it teaches you how to focus on your net worth as opposed to how much you earn, and basically reframes the way that women in particular think about money. So I think that's quite an interesting read. I also love I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, another personal finance guy. I love it because it focuses mostly on how to earn as opposed to, so it's from a very abundance mentality as opposed to a scarcity mentality.
So I'm going to ask this question. Perhaps I should have asked my wife, but I never did. How do women think about money? What is it there, the way women think about money?
Okay, so in Nigeria, I think it's weird. I have this theory that we're born, or rather, when we're little, boys are told very early on that they're going to be providers, they're going to be the man of the house. So they instantly start thinking about money in terms of being landlords and in terms of owning assets. But women are raised to be, you know, nurturers. So even when they start to earn money, they think about their money in terms of spending, not even necessarily on frivolous things, but they spend in terms of how to make my house a home, how to, now this extra income means I can now afford to look after myself, you know, buy tickets or buy hair or whatever. We don't necessarily think about money in terms of building assets that can protect us in the future because society has told us that it's a man's job.
So we are all now in recession, you and I, male and female, isn't it? So how do we get into this? I'm making the money, you're the one spending it. That's a nice way. But both of us are in recession, both the giver and the taker. Yeah. How do I read my way out of this recession as a woman?
Well, first of all, read my book, The Smart Money Woman, An African Girl's Journey to Financial Freedom, which basically talks about personal finance issues in an African context. So it's fictional and it has smart money lessons and exercises at the end of each chapter. I think that in this recession it's important for us because, you know, the more people you have discussions with, we're complaining about the dollar, we're complaining about inflation and a whole host of other things. But I think that it's important for us to start thinking about how we can turn problems into opportunities. So as dire as the economy seems at the moment, I think that there's still a lot of, you know, opportunities that people can take advantage of. So I think the question people should be asking themselves is what skills do I have that can help me to solve a problem that will create value and ultimately, earn more in this recession. Because it's interesting, I'm sure you know this, but at the end of every recession, there's usually a new crop of billionaires because in the recession, while everyone was complaining, they were, thinking about ways to add value and convert problems into opportunities. So I think we definitely need to be reading more and expanding our minds when it comes to that.
Yes, again, I agree with you. It looks like the world of billionaires and millionaires are increasing even with the downturn in the state of the economy. But again, when you talk about the folks like yourself in the C-suite, business executives, what kind of books do you think that they should be reading at this point in time?
I think basically they should be reading, I had mentioned Worth It, which is a personal finance book by Amanda Steinberg. I think they should be reading, I think business leaders should be reading about, books about other economies that have gone through similar experiences and how they've come out of it. There's a book about Singapore and how it's engineered its economic growth. I think those are interesting books to sort of read in this time. So we can see how other people came out of this sort of recession and how we can adapt their policies or their ideas to fit ours.
Yes, I was just about, what do you, if you think the Nigeria's political leaders should also be reading books? And what books do you recommend? Perhaps that's what you're just about talking about.
Yeah, well, the book I recommend is In Fed We Trust. So it talks about how the American economy sort of got out of its recession and how basically they took action. Because I think what is lacking here in Nigeria is there's no clear economic policy direction, and it doesn't make for a good environment for, say, SMEs or even foreign direct investment to come in. So they should definitely be reading books like that.
Let's get about the world of business, of personal, of finance, and all of that. You engage in young Africans under this initiative, Smart Money Africa, which you're a founder on how to think more about financial literacy and all that. What have you been achieving?
Okay, so basically, I've written this book called The Smart Money Woman. It's been very popular with young people because I think that money can be a very preachy topic, but the book sort of takes a fictional approach to it, tells the story of 5 African girls or 5 Nigerian girls, their personal finance journeys, and everything that they sort of they experience, things that an African girl would experience in terms of her money. And it has smart money lessons at the end of each chapter. I think in terms of what I've been achieving, it's been so great because I went on a book tour as opposed to having like a huge, book launch. I went on a book tour across Africa. I was fortunate to go to places like South Africa and Accra to sort of launch the book and find that, the pain points of women in South Africa were very similar to the pain points of women in Nigeria. And, with regards to the economy, it's interesting because I'm trying to create this Pan-African brand, but the way that there are no sort of like structures in place to support exporting goods, which I think would be a fantastic thing in this sort of, to get us out of this recession. But I've faced challenges like, logistics issues, sending the books to South Africa so that it can be distributed there, or to Accra, issues with payments, how to receive payments from other African countries. So I think that these are things that, the government can look at to help us.
In terms of, you spoke about more women. Do you have any thing in the pipeline to engage us, the male gender?
I think that men, well, I don't have anything in terms of in the pipeline to focus on men, but I am going on a book tour to the UK, to other African countries the rest of this year. But largely focused on African women at the moment because I think that we're at a cultural disadvantage and we need to get ahead when it comes to the way that we think about our money. Has your wife read my book?
Yeah, I agree with you. No, I'm not, she hasn't. She runs a very small business, but again, I've got to get a copy of your book
yes,
to encourage you. I would like to buy that off the shelf as to encourage you to do that. I'm not too sure I want a free copy. I want to buy.
All right, I'll leave a free copy for you here.
That will be women to women. Okay. So thank you very much, Arese Ogu, for coming through on the program today. We appreciate your time, author and founder of Smart Money Africa.
Thank you so much for having me.